Welcome to this week's episode of Courageous Leaders Changing the World. Super excited to have our guest this week, Mariana Lennert. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, the name of the podcast is Courageous Leaders Changing the World. What's been a time in your life where you've had to summon more courage than any other time?
Great question. When you ask this question, two things come to mind to me. One was leaving my career of law back home in Brazil when I was 24, and really trusting that calling to move somewhere where I didn't speak the language, where I didn't know anyone, where I left my family behind. I think that was a big one, like a really big one in my life. But I guess I was also quite young and curious, so you really don't realize until you actually land, and you're like, whoa, where, like, what am I doing here? And you ask all the questions. And the second one was when I fell pregnant of my first son, and I was in a relationship very fresh, only 3 months, with someone that I didn't really see my future with, and I had to make that decision of have a child. So that was a really big one for me as well, which I'm so grateful that I did the right decision. It changed everything for me and continue to change. So I think those are the two biggest courage move in my life.
Mm. What did you have to face off with in coming to Australia and leaving law then?
Well, first my family, my father, um, yeah, he invested a lot of energy and of course money and everything to have his daughter realizing his dream of becoming a lawyer.
Mm.
And it was so beautiful. I learned so much and I'm so grateful. And it was only when I finished like graduating as a lawyer and started working as one that I realized that I wasn't made for that. And I was like, wow, this is nothing like the person that I am. And it was a very clear knowing, even though I was so young. So I think living that identity and that security that I had back home, because I knew that I had my family to back me up in anything, and coming here, not being able to express myself and not having anyone to back me up. Well, I had my brother here, but it's still, my father told me, if you go, that's on you. You're deciding, you sell your car and you make that decision for yourself now. So it's like, wow, now I'm really having to trust in myself. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. When we have like 7-year cycles that kind of plays out. So like most people know the imprint stage, but most people don't know 21 to 28. So you were 24 at that time. We start to develop our own identity outside of our family unit a lot more. And that's when we start to recognize a lot of the time where we, have done a lot of the things that our parents wanted for us. And it's so common to be able to experience that, to recognize, and it plays out so much in Australia when so many people are choosing what they're going to do for the rest of their life, but they haven't even turned 21 yet. So they're still filtering it through their parents. So they go and get this degree based on what their parents would want. I did that in my life as well. I became a personal trainer and I was doing all of these different things based on what my parents would have deemed successful rather than what I would have deemed successful. So in, recognizing that we do that and having the courage to be able to go beyond that, because so many people don't. They just end up being a lawyer for the rest of their life. And yet they have that innate knowing that you had of recognizing, oh, this actually isn't for me. This isn't for me. I know that there's something else for me. And having that courage to be able to step into that is what really opens up people in life. So when you're working with people in your retreats and in your events, what is the primary thing that they're facing off with in stepping into more courage in their life?
Mm. I think what I find the most with the women that I work and come to my events and retreats are a lot of the times those women who didn't really follow their inner guidance and they follow the what society told them to do, like ourselves, just what you're talking about, and they get to a stage in their life where they maybe midlife 40, after having children and all of that they're questioning the deeper questions. They actually really curious about who they are. So this is what I actually work through, is really bring them back home and really knowing who they are on that journey. Mm.
I love that. How do you bridge the business part of you and the spiritual part of you? How do you bring those things together?
Great question. I guess that from so many years trying to understand who I am, and I find that I bring so many different aspects of myself. So I'm a mother, I deep into the spiritual world. I got a business, I train, so I have different values that are very important to me. And I got to this point where I really found how to integrate all of that into my life. And how I bring spirituality, I guess, is in everything that I am and how I do. I the sacred medicine and plant medicine has changed my life. And I truly believe that I came to the other side of the world so that I could reconnect with that part of myself, the ancient part of where I come from. Because growing up in Brazil, my family is Catholic and evangelic, it's something that we never had contact with. And I found that I had come to the other side to actually bring that part of myself, my soul back into me. So now I get to be who I am and just bring that essence into everything that I do and share.
Mm. How do you support people in bringing forth that more spiritual side of themselves, especially when they have that with either that job that is not kind of in that realm or that upbringing that's not in that realm?
Mm. Well, I guess I believe that we all are spiritual beings, right? So we can't go too far without really being connected to self. But the way that I think is the first step when someone is really in their trauma response or hypervigilant state, they really disconnect from their physical body. It's actually bring them back into their body, really coming back into grounding them into this reality so they can then feel the connection to the spirit. I think when we are in trauma response or hypervigilant, I know for myself that's how I lived my life a lot of the times, and it's very hard to find this connection with spirit. So I think bringing them back is the first step that I do through nervous system regulation and many different simple practices, and then from there implementing rituals that will bring them back into their faith, that trust. I think the journey that I'm really navigating now in myself and also with the woman is coming back to trust and to faith. And I think that is when that is unwavering in your life, you can navigate anything.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. One of the things that kind of plays out with the podcast is one of the core themes is trust, because it's like we need to be able to step into the things that we're fearing courageously. We need to be able to trust what's playing out, to be able to go beyond that. And the other dynamic that plays out with it is facing off with the opposite side of trust, which is like betrayal. So it's like all the areas where people or ourselves have betrayed ourselves playing out, where we no longer trust ourselves. So, what has been your journey with betrayal in life?
Mm. I guess the biggest betrayal is the one that we have with ourselves, right? When we actually, I think, when we don't have our word as a sacred contract to ourselves and we started to break that, it gives a space for so many different aspects of our lives to replicate that to us, right? And I always tell that to my women. I say, when you tell yourself that you're going to meditate or you're going to go to the gym and you actually don't do that, and someone else, a man, say, oh, sorry, I'm running late, or, I have to cancel a last minute, you will tolerate because that's how you treat yourself. So I guess the deep trust and that radical honesty with yourself is the most sacred um, space that you can have. And I certainly have done a lot of that in my life, self-sabotage my success and my rituals. And I guess we do that, talking for myself, I know that I have done that. And funny enough, this has been something coming up for me lately, which is, why do we do that? And a lot of the times reflecting is just to, it's a second, it's gaining that, the needing to be right. It's like, oh, my stories, or, to prove to myself that that wouldn't work out. So we keep sabotaging the things that could actually possibly give us the change that we desire.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it definitely plays out for, the majority of people. They have that confirmation bias. They're just looking for further evidence of the things that they already believe about themselves, like it wouldn't work out, or they're not good enough, or they're
Mm-hmm.
unlovable, or that, men always abandon
Mm-hmm.
them or betray them, whatever it is, whatever their underlying wounding is. And, the thing that opens up for people when they expand into that is, like, as you said, it just comes back to that level of, self responsibility. It's like when you can actually take that full level of ownership, go beyond that need to be right, because I talk about that being the primary reason why most wars are started. It's like, I'm right, you're wrong. This is what's right. This is what's wrong. Your values, your beliefs are wrong. That's what creates all of the tension. That's what creates all conflict in relationships, intimate relationships with all of the people, countries. That's all created from this place of righteousness needing to be right. And the more that we can actually go back to responsibility and actually just back to ourselves, then everything opens up for us.
Mm.
So, how do we start to create a deeper sense of responsibility in our life?
Well, I would like to say that is with the small things. It's with the little things that you tell yourself. Like I say, if I tell myself that I will show up for myself, I'm going to train 3 times a week, or that I will meditate 3 times a week, or, little things. It's important that we commit, that your word to yourself becomes your sacred contract,
Mm,
and when that becomes you and yourself, because that is when no one is watching, only you know. You
mm,
have no one to keep you accountable. You have no one to tell that you're doing right or wrong. And we always have the 1,355 stories that are reason why we don't need to show up. I know I have. I'm like, oh, I'm so busy. I have 2 kids. Morning, such a rush. We
mm,
always have those. And the same for, for our kids, for instance. If you say something, it's like the words that we will continue to say, well, if I told you that, that's what's going to play out. And that, from myself and my children, just goes out to everything else in my life.
mm.
I think your standards just level up when you have the self of responsibility and commitment to yourself. Once you show up to yourself in that level, you will not tolerate anything else under that
Mm.
level of standard.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. In the work that we do, we call it the growing up work. You have to actually just grow up to be able to, keep all of the commitments that you've created, treat them as sacred contracts, because they really are. And most people think that they don't show, but your bank account right now is a representation of how you've kept those agreements and those contracts that you've created, whether anyone's watching or not. It shows up there, and then that shows up on social media and all of these areas. People think that it's hidden, but it's written all over everyone's faces. That's the thing that most people, they don't see. They just think, oh no, people don't see me breaking my agreements. And it's like, well, that shows up in your results. It's very, very, very simple. So
So true.
with the work that you do, what do you find are the common patterns that people play into when you're supporting the people?
I find that the common pattern with the woman that I work with are that a lot of the women that I work with, they are very strong, very powerful women, extremely powerful. A lot of CEOs, a lot of women leading huge teams. And so what I find is that a lot of women have become very great in performing in their masculine, in achieving it all, in being everything, and, climbing the ladder, and yeah, just creating the external life that looks really good. But inside, they literally, when they go to bed, they don't know who they are. They're feeling anxiety, depression. Many of my clients experience panic attack like I did back, a few years ago. And yeah, just the constant threat of questioning what else, and the curiosity of how do I come back to my spirituality, to my feminine, to, to feel more whole in who I am.
Hmm. And what are some of the ways that you allow people to feel more whole then?
Is dismantling and supporting them to see in ways that they actually showing up and performing, and what they do from this place of if I don't do it, then I will not be worth of who I am, of receiving love, of receiving money, of receiving attention, and really expanding the capacity to receive more and feel that they are worthy. And the way that we do that, it's through so many practices, and we have a huge space that I lead a lot of women. Like the retreat is a full immersion where we work through let go of the masks, coming back to the body, working through sides of themselves that sometimes they are unaware, like the light feminine, the dark feminine, really coming back to that, to the primal life force energy. And I guess that when women who are extremely powerful can integrate all of those parts in their life, they become even more powerful. Because often the greatest leaders in the world, they all have their strength in the masculine energy. So we don't want to push that to the side. We want to embrace that with everything that we are. Yeah, and what the challenging in that also is because a lot of women who are on that masculine journey, they are very used to having ROI, big return on investment, from A to B. That's where I'm gonna get, that's where I'm gonna land. And this is the results that I'm gonna have. And the feminine journey is actually different, right? It's a compound, it's a devotional, it's every day a little bit more until you actually look back and you're like, wow, I don't recognize the woman that I was 3 months ago. So yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. What's been your journey with owning a deeper sense of worth then? It's one of those things that keeps playing out each level that we go through, each time that we go to do something new. Then, we're asking, am I worthy of this? Do I deserve this? Am I good enough for this? What's been your journey with that?
Oh, it's been huge. So huge. Yeah, I guess I like to think the self journey, it's a journey that we're always on. And, as you say, different levels, there is different levels of self journey that we have to expand and titrate and allow ourselves to lean into that. And I think self worth comes very close to courage. You really have to lean into that courage to expand your self worth. And I believe my journey with self worth has been just really completely not feeling worthy of of being seen, of like show up online, of and comes a lot with needing to be perfect, and needing fear of being judged and all the other stories that come with that. But I also believe that when you really, for me at least, when I found my deeper why and the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, my kids are also my biggest why and the role model that I want to be for them. And I always question myself, if I tell my children that they should do it, they should break their fear and do something that they're afraid of, who am I to say if I'm not doing? Right. So, and that's the only way to increase my self worth is actually putting myself in those opportunities that I have that might be a little bit scary, but will actually expand my self worth. And then also the little things on how I talk to myself. I always say in my events that the first time that I facilitated my event for I think was about 60 women, I was I was completely freaking out. I had to close the tickets because I didn't have more capacity to have more women in the room. So I really had to work on my self-worth. And, I did a lot of shadow work, really understanding why the self-worth piece was playing up, and came a lot from, my father and the lineage, which was amazing. And really having that conversation to myself and reminding myself, of everything that I have done, all the energy, all the money, all the time that I have invested in myself, and why I was actually worthy of being the one delivering that message for all the 60 women that were coming to receive. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. It's interesting to see it play out. Often when we're doing something new, then we feel fear and we feel not good enough. These are the two primary things that we face off with. That when we use courage to be able to go through it, then everything opens up for us. And when we recognize that we're actually in that experience of um, kind of capping our expansion, as you mentioned that you did, in terms of like stopping having more tickets coming up. What do we do, especially with our nervous system in that space?
You asking me what we
Yep.
do?
Yeah. So when we get to that place where we're expanding, we're capping our expansion. What do we do with our nervous system in that place? So
Well, we're expanding, we're titrating, right?
yeah.
So I knew exactly my capacity, and I knew that I had 50 in my mind. And then when we started to sell over 50, I'm like, I could feel my nervous system just going to that, hyper vigilant state. So I'm like, all right, this is the time for me to cap and then expand and feel safe in that.
Mm.
And then the next one I had 70, and then that's the titration. And then I have spoken to stages over 200 people, and again, titrating. So it's just that titration, to feel safer and safer and safer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all know ours, and it's a beautiful spot where you're meeting your edge and you expand it, but you also you know that you're not playing safe, but you also know where to stop. You know how far you can go at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Great. I love that. For the listeners that aren't trauma informed, can you explain what titration is to them?
Sure, yeah. So titration is when your nervous system and everything, the experiences that you have had in your life, have allowed you to have a certain experience. So let's say you're going to talk in public and you are speaking in public is your worst fear. So maybe you go and you talk to a group of friends, and in that sense, you feel nervous, but you still can manage. And then titrate is when you go into a bigger space and you are slowly expanding your nervous system so you can feel safe into actually meeting your edge, speaking to 20 people and then maybe 30 people. So you're just expanding yourself gently to not go back into possibly a freeze trauma response, or where you just probably want to just run or are able to speak because your body is going into that shutting down space. So yeah, I think that can be used for, of course, not only public speaking but for everything in life, relationships. And I love teaching that to my clients and actually supporting them to meet their edge and observe. Because I think when you know yourself, when you actually know, all right, this is how I'm feeling right now, this is, I feel nervous, but I'm still in control. I can regulate myself. And there's such a great power that comes with that when you can actually really see that happening in your field and with your nervous system and energetically as well.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you see it with people when they start solo skydiving. The first thing that they're teaching people is to just jump like off a ledge. That's all they're getting them to do, because they just need to get them to take the action. They don't just say, all right, you've done a tandem skydive, now you're going to jump out of the plane on your own. It's like, no, we need to be able to get you to create a new normal in your nervous system by titrating, by going, okay, cool, just jump off this ledge here, and then we get a little bit higher, and then eventually we go up in the plane so that it's normal in your nervous system to be able to experience that. So when you're working with clients, how important is understanding of the nervous system?
Wow, I would say it's everything. It's everything. I feel that I have lived my life for a really long time. I would say probably, yeah, after I had my two children, and that I wasn't aware about my nervous system, and I had to really come into a place of shutting down, where my nervous system completely shut down, because I was just pushing and forcing and pushing and forcing and, working out, or going to work out and taking pre-workout, because I was tired, and then going to sleep and taking sleeping tablet. It was just a crazy time. Taking anti-anxiety tablets. It was just like everything that I could grasp to, to save me. So after that, I had to learn, what are the things. And I think because I have been always been I always been someone that, I like big things. Let's say I of course sit with a lot of medicine journey, and and it's like when you do the medicine, it's just such a big experience. So when someone told me, oh, you just gotta, do the breathing and you just gotta understand your nervous system, it felt so simple, but I still didn't do it. And so I really had to learn that the importance of understanding myself, understanding my nervous system. And I think the nervous system is beyond everything, because when you are not in a safe temple, when your body's not safe, you are close to receive. You are, the identity that is creating the impact that you have in the world is also being affected by your nervous system, because you're in a space where you can't actually change, you can't be open. And it's most likely that the desire, the reality that you desire will require a new version of you, which then you need to do the work of nervous system to change your values, to change your beliefs, to change your identity, to create a new reality.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, one of the things that we see playing out all the time is most people get stuck in one kind of transformational work. They go to NLP and everything's NLP from there. It's all in the head. And then we have other people that are trauma informed, but then they get stuck over there and all the trauma informed nervous system stuff. And then you've got the medicine people over here that are just always doing medicine journeys. And leveling up requires the integration of all of these things so that we can actually start to show up in the world to an entirely new level. Because if we're only ever consistently doing cleaning up work and all of these things, then there's no integration of it all. And integration is what actually allows us to be able to create that new identity, so that we can actually go, okay, cool, this is the new identity I'm stepping into. This is the new version of who I am that I've always been, that I'm now claiming and owning. And then I can actually create that being my new normal. And until I actually integrate that into my system and all of the bodies, the mental body, the spiritual body, the emotional body, the physical body, then what's going to happen is I'm just going to have disjointedness or disintegration, rather than actually integrating that new level, that new identity, where that just becomes the new normal. And that's what all hyperachievers, they've done that. They've actually integrated those identities and done that layer by layer when they've actually started to do something new. When you've started to do the 60-person event, you create that being your new normal, and then you go to the 70 and then the 200 and so on. That just creates that level of integration where we can actually continually get results, rather than just getting stuck at a certain level, a certain revenue level, or a certain number of people in events and all of those things. It just comes back to that foundational transformational work where we can create that integration of that. So in speaking to that, when you're working with people to be able to shift their identity, what are you taking them through?
Well, I actually have created all these different pillars that I work through. And it's what I work is first to identify where you are, right? Identify your patterns, identify the games that you're playing in the game of life, and how you're showing up to yourself, to everybody around you. And then the first thing is nervous system regulation. So we do simple practices of, breathing, of of course I do sound healing, so we do sound healing, we do tapping, and like so many different tools to bring them back into their body. And I because I'm a mom and I have two businesses, so I consider myself to be busy just in my life. I like simple things, so I like simple tools that we can actually, if we are putting petrol, in your car, in the petrol station, you're like, all right, I have that little 5 minutes to actually breathe and really recalibrate myself. I'm on the line on the supermarket, and instead of being like, all right, hurry up, it's like, all right, let me take this time to actually recalibrate my nervous system, and slow breath, and coming back to myself and scanning myself. And what I also teach the women is, as women, and again, working with the powerful masculine archetype of woman, I call the huntress archetype. Working with this kind of woman, it's really important to teach them a few transitions. So let's say you are working in the corporate all day long, and then how can we find a transition where you leave the hat of I'm a boss baby in the corporate, and now I transition into, okay, now I'm the mother. I'm in the mother archetype. And then from that transition, then you go into your relationship. Like, how can we then meet that transition again from the archetype of the mother into the feminine, the sensual, in your relationship, so you can drop into your feminine and actually allow yourself to be softened and received and cared for. So yeah, just a few transitions. I think it's life changing for all of us.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Yeah, we talk about it in terms of how the clothes that you wear are often part of it. We talk about it as ASL. It's the attire, the sounds, and the location that you're in. So if I'm working and I'm in a certain energy and I'm like writing or something, then I'll be wearing different clothes than I will be if I'm like doing funnels or something in my business or coaching someone. I'll also be listening to different things if I'm like creatively writing a post or something comparative to if I'm creating slides. So the way that we do the transitions is like, okay, cool. What's the clothes that you're wearing that's going to match the energy that you're in? What is the sounds that you're listening to? I'm listening to EDM if I'm getting lots of work done, whereas I'm listening to spiritual music if I'm writing. And then the location, like I'll be in different points of the house where I'm doing different things, or different cafes if I'm working from a cafe when I'm doing each of those pieces, because that just matches, the clothes that you're wearing, the sounds, and the location to the task that you're doing. And it allows people to be able to transition and be in that. And then as soon as I go home, then I'm like getting changed. I'm doing all the different things. And most people don't recognize how much that plays into things. Like even my hat, this is my spiritual hat. And I have different hats for different things that I do. So this is like my intuitive work kind of spiritual hat, but
I
then I've got
love
other
that.
ones at home as well. So I have like a gym one, and then I've got like a family one as well, where it's just different energy because it automatically just associates you into a specific energy. And most people discount the importance of the energy that you're in and matching the energy that you're in to the task that you're doing. Can you speak to the importance of matching those things?
I love everything that you share. That's amazing. And we do similar as well with the women. So let's say, sometimes when you get home from work, having a shower and moisturize your body can be something that really brings you into the softness. Spray or light a candle. So it's really helping them to choose or see what really resonates with them. Like you say, putting in music, moving your body, dancing. Another one can be also having a necklace or something that represents the amulet for you. The amulet for you. So let's say I'm going into my business. I have the necklace that it really grounds and makes me really step into the huntress. Like, all right, let's get things done. So really that transition into, and again, like clothes as well. And, but I really like to have something that they can carry with them. And, some have crystals, others have necklace. And that transition it's really important. And I think the most important as well is, I think beyond that, because that's anchor and it's great because it brings you to your unconscious mind. It's like, all right, I know where I am now, and it's a unconscious transition. But it's actually bringing the conscious awareness into your energy. Into like, all right, like sometimes, before I walk into my home, I just take a couple of minutes inside of my car. Like, all right, let me breathe into that. Let me scan my field. What's my energy level? How am I feeling right now? Do I have a full cup? I don't. Like, what's my energetic capacity? And that allows me to set the boundaries and the availability into my family or into work to say yes or no to things, and to really communicate that to my family. Like my family is very aware that when I'm on my premenstrual phase, I'm like, all right, mommy's on, and they already know. They're like, mommy, are you on your autumn phase? I'm like, yes, I am. So they just feel, because they know me, and it's just communicating that, and then communicating what I require, how they can support me as well. So just, and you don't know that if you don't know where you are. You don't know that if you don't know how you feel. So I think that's really important. And that's where I see a lot of women, and that's the standard that we were talking before, because when you don't know that, you keep showing up to everybody else and bypassing your own needs and, your feelings and everything else, and then expecting to get the validation from other people around you. I have so many women that they do that. It's, they show up and they're so empty, but they keep showing up, and then they get so upset because they still criticizing, that they're being criticized or they're not validated. And the first question I ask is like, all right, how are you doing that to yourself, right? How can you bring that power back to you? Because if your cup is full and you create the boundary, then if people do validate you or not, you're not going to care, because you're actually showing up like that for yourself. And you actually, like, it's that level of, I actually don't need anyone to validate me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's like the piece of shadow work. It's like whatever you're labeling in the person externally that they're doing to you is the thing that you're doing to yourself instantaneously. There's no separation between that. And as soon as you can recognize that instantaneously, you can take back your power, and it becomes so easy to be able to get results. Then it has nothing to do with what shows up externally. It's all about what's actually playing out internally and how you're responding to that situation, even if they don't do a behavior of validating you or criticizing you or any of those pieces. So I love how you frame that. When women especially are journeying, being seen on an even deeper level, you recognize that, one of the foundational levels of that is like, all right, I need to be seen online in business, and then I need to be seen potentially running an event, and then I need to be seen selling on stage, and then I need to be seen doing these other pieces. There's all of these different stages that people go through. And it's one of those core things that women journey a lot of coaches journey it as well. How do you allow people to be able to step into a new level of being willing to be seen at a new level?
How for a client of mine?
Yep.
So, well, that's a very unique journey, I would say. First of all, everyone has different shadow that would come up and for them. But I guess the way that I would, that I have guided my clients and supported them is really supporting them to, like, first it's acknowledging and see where the roadblocks are playing, right? Like what kind of stories are coming up for them. And I always like to teach from what I have experienced and how I have done myself. And for me, it's again what we were just speaking before, which is moving gently to the level that then their nervous system can actually handle, right? And some clients are facilitating events, and then from the events they want to do workshop events, and then from that they decided that they want to create a speaking event, and they just moving from the level that they can actually hold, right? I think the biggest mistake is first comparing ourselves to someone that is so much ahead, and we forget of the journey that they have paved to be where they are. So I think it's really bringing that back into and that's where I work a lot with my intuition, is really, filtering and tuning into their nervous system and see to what capacity. And then it's, you know that it's really amazing because universe will respond, right? Sometimes we want 100 people in an event and we only have 40, and you're like, oh, you're questioning and you're questioning yourself, and then you're like, all right, 40 is actually the number that I can hold right now. So it's just coming back to the trust. And so, yeah, so the way that I help my clients is a lot of shadow work and a lot of nervous system regulation, so they can actually integrate the energetic, the physical body and the mental body into holding that space, holding that vision that they are here to have. And then plus all, strategy skills. But I think that is the main behind the work that it gets to be done.
Yeah, I love that. One of the universal laws that we talk about is you can only handle what you've got. So you only get what you can handle, basically. And it's like, if you're not handling it emotionally, then you're not actually going to get more. And sometimes your capacity is at that 40-person event, sometimes at a 100-person event. And sometimes the level of transformation of a 40-person event is much bigger and much more higher quality at the same time. So sometimes it's an expansion, but wherever you're at, whatever you're holding is basically the capacity that you're holding at that moment. And what it comes back down to is our ability to be able to open up and expand our capacity, to be able to titrate into that, to be able to create a new level of normal for us, so that we can actually then hold that ongoingly. We can hold either that new number of people in the event or the new revenue level, whatever it is, and create that being normal. And that's probably one of the pieces that so many people, get stuck in. They create an expansion, they go to a new level, but then they don't integrate that new level. They go back to what it was before. They fall back into, they were doing, they had a record month of, 70K month, and then they drop back to doing 50K months again. They have that one time up rather than creating that being the new normal. And the piece with that is, like, it comes back to that nervous system. It comes back to the integration of all of the pieces along that path, so that then they can actually start to allow themselves to be able to hold that new normal rather than have the breakthrough but then fall back. When people have had that breakthrough and fallen back, what do you do with them?
Mm. Yeah, so I have experienced that myself, so many times. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And so for me, it's again, is allowing the time to integrate this new norm, this new reality, and really one thing that I noticed, which I used to do it in the past, and I noticed my clients is moving too fast into like, what's next? Let's go. What's next? Oh, 40. Now I want a 70. I want 100. And then we actually don't take the time to actually really sink in and integrating and allowing the time to integrate to all levels, right? And also another big piece is the celebration. It's actually celebrating the steps, because the celebration create this new framework and this new wire in your nerve system that really supports you to acknowledge and to allow the safety in your nerve system to integrate the new reality.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. We have a model for it in how we talk about it in terms of business. Most people are focused on, the next, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? That's like the growth or the scaling phase. And then we move around to the next phase, which is the maturing phase where you're actually starting to build systems around that, and the stabilization, which is actually locking that in as the new normal. And then we move into the evolution phase, which is like the next up curve to be able to go around again. We need to destroy or evolve the business in a way so that it actually creates a new level of integration to the new level to be able to create those rolling hills rather than just up and down at the same level. And most people were marketed to only ever being in growth. It's like, oh, I have to get more people, more money, more this, more that. And, that's not how business actually works. That's not how the seasons of life actually work. It's actually going through those rolling hills rather than just going straight up. No business actually ever grows up like that. There's always those micro adjustments that we go through, and we recognize the season that we're in, and we actually go through the season that we're in. It actually allows us to be able to actually continue that growth rather than, again, going in the squiggly line at the same level. So it's common for people to be able to experience that. What's the thing that's forcing you into summoning more courage in your life at the moment?
I feel the courage right now is, well, right now, actually, I feel that I'm in between these two timelines,
Mm.
sort of, and it can get a little bit woo woo, right? If we talk about it, but it's
Bring on the
like,
woo woo.
yeah, it's like that, the timeline where I'm currently am, and then there is a new timeline, which has been really interesting and really palpable and amazing to feel. So I feel for me is the courage right now. It's where we started our conversation. Is the courage to fully surrender into the trust into what's being presented to me to this level, and knowing that also with that there is a feeling of death as well, and that feeling of things are dying, and trusting that whatever is dying, it's also meant to die. Yeah, so it's, and I found to myself, it's funny how sometimes I can see, that is still the wound of, oh my God, I don't want to be abandoned, and I see, things changing. And so again, coming back to the trust, I'm like, all right, I'm in full trust, I'm in full devotion of who I'm supposed to be in this lifetime. And, opening my channels to this new timeline that is being presented. So I think that's my courage right now. It's really daily reminding of that, of like, all right, I am guided, I'm supported, I'm provided, and I'm just in service in this planet.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's the kind of the perfect way to put it, the two timelines that are kind of intersecting. And, we we have that point where, our what, you know, what and who we've been to the point on that old timeline has created so much success for us, and so much now it's created so much success that it's now become comfort to be successful at that level. that new timeline's like coming in, and the universe starts to, any time that there's a new level of challenge in our life, a new level of support starts to show up for us. So it's our ability to be able to return to that level of trust, to be able to actually see all of the things that the universe is providing for us, so that we can actually create that shift from the timeline that we've been on to the next timeline, which is an entirely different reality of what we're really here to step into, is what our, our soul path is for this lifetime, and actually like bring that forth and allow that to be able to move through us, rather than having the human be in the resistance of holding on to the other pieces. I talk about it all the time. It's like this dance between the soul and the human. The soul knows exactly what we're here for, and the human is like trying to hold on to all of the things of the past, all of our old identities, all the things that have created success for us. Our nervous system becomes activated in that. And, the way that we journey that is our ability to be able to just, listen to the soul. It's the soul line, rather than just listening to that human line that it's consistently feeding us of all of the stories of, whatever our wounding is that keeps us stuck in that. So I love that.
Yes. So another thing on that as well is, exactly what you say. I think a lot of women like myself who come from the pattern of being very strong in their masculine, in the huntress, we need that pillars to hold on to. Like, that's your safety. That's your default mode growing up. Like, you developed that so you could feel safe in the world. And when you are when you are called to a deep surrender and trust, it's like everything's taken from you, and you're like, where are my pillars? I know everything, and it's crazy. It's just require this deep level of trust and embodiment, and again, nerve system. Because I can definitely resonate, and it's like you have this roadmap that you imagine, that you see, that you want for yourself, and you want to give that to God. You want to give it, say, this is my roadmap, like do it this way, and He has a completely different roadmap for you, and you're like, all right, I surrender. Everything, like in my life, everything always worked beyond. I tried to control, and I wanted to control, but life has these incredible roads that takes me and humble me down to my knees. Purging in a ceremony and coming back, I'm like, all right, get it out, I get it, and everything has been so much better than what I could control. So I have enough, proving points to know that, and it's still sometimes we still, question and try to control. So that's the journey currently.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. We just had the birth of our like second child, and
Yes.
we're taking we had the cyclone here, and we were running like a 6-day event, and it was starting at that, and we had all these people flying in for this event, and I was just like, will we run it? And we ended up running it through the cyclone, so we had to do it online for the first day, even though it's an in-person event, and then everyone started to come in from the following days. And I'm in this event, and I'm like searching for, like, we've got like a break or something, and I'm on the break, and I'm just like, we're looking for a new house. And I'm searching online. I'm like, oh, I love that house. That'd be like the perfect house. I don't think that's in our price range, but it's coming up in the search. So we'll go and have a look at it after the event. And, we walk into the house, and then I asked my partner, Jackie, can you see yourself living here? And she just starts crying. And I'm like, oh shit, we're buying a house. And it was like the absolute worst time, because we just run an event. We're literally taking the next week off. And that means, when you buy a house, you've got the real estate calling you, you've got solicitors calling you, you've got building impairs people calling you. So my week off was not a week off, and we've got this baby on the way. And when we actually finally go through the process of all of these things, we're like, all right, well, we can settle the house before the baby comes or after the baby comes. So it's like either a 45-day settlement or a 120-day settlement. And we're like, okay, we can do either. And the universe is just like, all right, it's going to be 45 days.
Wow.
So we're like in this process of buying a house. All of these things, of all of the timelines that I had, were like, all right, we're going to buy a house in August, September, October, all of these things. And the universe is just like, no, you're getting this now. Yes, you wanted to have a week off now. No, you don't get a week off now. Yes, you want to be fully into the house and have a couple of weeks in the house before you have a baby, and then the baby comes early. We're in there for like a week, and the universe is just like, throwing all of these things going, your timeline, your roadmap that you've handed to me, that's beautiful. You little child. I always do it like this when I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh, God's like, oh, you little child, that's so cute. You've given me a roadmap. Oh, that's okay. And then he has hit the plan out that I've actually got is like this. And it's like, are you going to surrender? Are you going to trust? Are you going to open up to actually allowing life to flow through and actually work with it? Or are you just going to go into your old patterns and just go into resistance, into control, into sabotaging yourself, into playing small? Or are you just going to let life flow through you? And, that's one of those things that life becomes most magical when we do that. And all of the expectations around the timeline that you thought it was going to be is often much longer when you want it to be short and much shorter when you want it to be long. It's like whatever you want a long timeline. Oh, I want plenty of space. It's like, no, you get it now. It's like, oh, I want it really fast. It's like, oh, you're going to wait.
Will teach you the lesson that you need to learn. That's for sure. I love that so much. And it's so interesting because the more awareness and the more faith that you have, the more that God universe will challenge you, right? Like you, it was like, oh no. And it's like all in once. Like, here you go, the house, the child, like all the things. It's wild. Yeah. So amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the perfect thing to wrap up on for today. What's the best way for people to be able to get in contact with you?
The best way is my Instagram. I think that's where I'm more active. Mariana Lennert on Instagram or Facebook as well. I have my EmpowerHER events coming up this weekend, and and I guess online, that's where you can find everything that is coming up and alive and happening.
Great. Thank you. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Great.